This is David Diaz, former WBC lightweight champion of the world, and you're listening to The Grueling Truth.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of The Grueling Truth Inside Boxing Weekly. I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster. I want to welcome in my co-host, Jeremiah Preisser. How you doing tonight, Jeremiah?
I'm very good, Mike. Excited to talk about the fights. Excited to be on. Always excited to be here.
Yep, most definitely. And we had him on for the pre-fight. We might as well have him on for the after the fight. John the Iceman Scully. How you doing, John?
Everything's very good. Glad to be here.
All right, we talked a little bit about the bigness of this fight in the boxing community, but maybe not overall in the sports world. You were there over the weekend in Vegas. You want to tell us what the atmosphere was like for the fight?
You know what? I'll compare it to, say Mayweather and Pacquiao, because I was in Vegas for that one as well. Nothing close to that, at all. You had to actually, to even know there was a fight, you had to be there at the arena. Like, once you got to the arena, inside the building, then there was, there was people talking, people were excited and everything. But, if you were in Las Vegas and was walking around the Strip and didn't know there was a fight, you still wouldn't know. So, I don't know if they weren't advertising it right or, I don't know what it was. But on fight night, the atmosphere was pretty good. It wasn't like super intense. But it was pretty good. It was a little bigger than average, I guess you could say.
All right. Had a controversial decision. Jeremiah, how do you see the fight? Do you think they got the decision right, or did you think Kovalev won the fight?
Well, I think I fell in line with about 75% of the press row scores. Most people saw Kovalev edging it. I also saw Kovalev edging it. I personally don't think it was a robbery. I do think it was very close. I think there was, a lot of close rounds that could have went either way. But in my opinion, I had, Kovalev winning most of the early rounds. He dictated with the jab, landed a lot of good power shots, dropped Ward with a decent right hand in the second round. But, it seemed like he let his foot off the gas pedal at about round 6. And that kind of allowed Ward to get back, into his rhythm. He started to, in my opinion, Ward did most of the best work in the mid rounds. And then when it got close, when it got 10, 11, 12, there was some good back and forth action there. But, in my opinion, I had Kovalev winning by a few rounds. But, it was a solid fight and good for the light heavyweight division and good for boxing.
Yeah, and John, I think the thing that really turned the fight was Ward's ability to go to Kovalev's body.
Yeah, he, even being there, I wasn't directly ringside. I was a little ways back. But, yeah, the body shots were very noticeable. I give Andre a lot of credit because he could, a lesser fighter mentally would have folded for sure. Like being in, you think about for the last couple of years, 2, 3, 4 years, Kovalev's been being built up, monster, he's a monster, and he's got all these knockouts, and, now you're in there fighting him, and you're moving up in weight, and you've been a little rusty, and here you go, the guy's super strong, he drops you in the second round. A lesser guy could have easily crumbled under that circumstance, but you have to give Andre Ward credit. He adjusted, and you could see around maybe the 5th or 6th round, you could see his confidence really almost like bubbling over. And by the middle of maybe the 7th round, in the 8th round, his confidence was at a high. He, I have to give him credit. There was a few moments there when he actually stopped and traded punches. He countered and finished the exchanges a couple times. He didn't run like I think a lot of people thought he might. He moved and he boxed, but there was times when he stood and fought, and I have to give him credit. He finished strong, and he looked good those last 6 rounds.
Yeah, and I think whether he won the fight or lost the fight is not the important thing here. I think the important thing is, to me, I equate it to, not on the same scale, but like Duran-Leonard won. When Leonard comes out, he gets hurt, he stands there and fights, and even though he loses, he wins everybody's respect. Because we've seen a lot of guys the last 15 years that are supposed to be great fighters that when they get tested kind of fold up. And, the thing that impressed me about Ward, John, was just the fact that he fought back even harder when he was in trouble.
Right. Yeah, then that's what I mean. Like no one would have blamed if he took a safer route and boxed and angles and that type of strategy. But he he stood his ground a few times. He traded shots and he finished the exchanges a few times, and his jab was good. And I mean, realistically, other than the knockdown, I would say, just me personally, when I think back to the best shots of the fight, I think Andre was landing them. He was, and especially the body shots, he was really digging in. And whether he won or lost, you've got to give the guy credit for moving up and fighting that strongly. But and it's funny too, because when the fight was over, like literally right at the bell, my friend turned to me and said, "What do you think?" And I said, "It's either going to be a draw or they're going to give it to Andre." And that's from my view, that's what I felt. And I was actually kind of surprised how everyone is, apparently like the general overwhelming consensus is that Andre did not win, and a lot of people are saying he really didn't win. Like they're adamant about it. And I didn't score the fight round by round. I just go by my gut feeling and based on what I see. And that was my feeling. When the fight was over, I thought it would be a draw or they'd give it to Andre.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a draw just when they said all three judges had to score the same. That's what I was ready for, was a draw. On the Kovalev side, I think the same thing can be said for him that was said for Ward, though, because Ward landed some really good shots on him. Kovalev looked like he was getting tired, but he still finished the fight, and he finished the fight strong, Jeremiah.
No, I agree. I mean, during the middle rounds when Andre was working the midsection, Andre seemed to be doing his best work when he got inside. And I had said that before, if he couldn't win the jabbing contest, then, maybe he'd try to rough him up a bit. He did good work, and it did look like it had started to take a toll on Kovalev a bit. But, when it came to the 10th and 11th round, I mean, we saw, again, through the first 6, whatever it may be, Kovalev was doing well. I think most people had him winning most of those rounds. But around 10 and 11 and 12, he helped kind of, even out the action. When Ward, had most of the momentum, Kovalev in the 10th round, he started to get his jab going a little bit more. There were a lot of even exchanges. And, from a guy, we didn't really know a whole lot about Kovalev and how he'd react to this sort of opponent. I mean, Ward was tested, After the Super 6 tournament, there's no doubt about that. I mean, his resume was deeper. With Kovalev, he was fighting a lot of good fighters, and Hopkins, a great fighter, but, of course, Hopkins was 50 years of age when that happened, so we weren't quite sure what he was made of, but I think he showed that he had the mental toughness and the grit and a solid chin. I mean, he took a number of good shots. Even near the end there, he actually started, even throughout the course of the fight, he didn't always let Ward bully him. Like when you watch the Ward-Kessler fight, Kessler let him bully him around the ring, bang him on the inside, and Ward did a lot of good stuff, during the mid-rounds as well. But Kovalev, at times, he used his strength and tied Ward up and backed him up against the rope sometimes. And again, he started going to the body a little bit better later in the fight. So I think it's great, not only for boxing that both men showed this championship caliber, but I think it's even better for a rematch. I mean, barring the controversy and whatnot, this will help sell the rematch, right? The controversy itself will, but the fact that we know both guys are real good championship level fighters.
Yeah, there's no dog in either one of these guys.
Right.
And they're both great fighters. But the other thing it seemed to me was I thought that Kovalev did a decent job of cutting the ring off the first few rounds. But it seemed like after about the 4th or 5th round, John, that he was just chasing.
Right. I think he might have been a little bit surprised at the way things, he could feel, I guess, the flow kind of drifting away a little bit. And, he may not have respected Andre. I don't think Andre's a huge puncher. I know he's not. I don't know. I think the crowd. I'll say this way. I think the crowd generally was favoring Andre. It was more his crowd. And Kovalev, I think maybe he was just maybe a little over anxious. He probably figured that with Andre being a smaller man that he just had to go straight to him and that his overall size would wear him down. I think to me, it seemed like my gut feeling was that when Andre was digging back and wrestling with him on the inside, I think he may have been Kovalev may have been a little bit surprised at the fact that Andre was doing that, and the fact that Andre was probably a little bit stronger than he anticipated. I've always had the feeling that Andre, as a boxer, people don't associate him with the word strength. Like, that's not what you think of when you think of an Andre Ward. But my feeling is that he is a strong guy, and that when people get in there with him, they feel that.
All right, so what do you think happens in a rematch? You think this is a fight that's just, no matter how many times they fight, it's going to be close? Or is there something one or the other can do to put some distance between the two, John?
My gut feeling would be that the fight would be similar. I don't like Kovalev. I don't know how much he could do differently in terms of style. I think he would probably jab more and try to back Andre up more consistently because of the jab, instead of just letting Andre back up on his own. I don't think Kovalev could outbox Andre, so that strategy probably isn't in the mix. Andre may be more comfortable next time because of the way the way he felt like he finished stronger, and but by the same token, he may get home and think about it and think about the right hand that dropped him, and in a rematch, it all depends on how the fight affected each guy mentally, and we don't know that, based just on what we see, because what they feel in there is a lot different than what we just see watching on TV. So, whoever's the stronger guy mentally is going to have a big edge going into the rematch. All
right, well, definitely worth paying for, but my problem is this. I mean, either one of you can answer this, but you're paying $55 for a fight, and they give you 3 undercard fights like we had. They got to be able to give fans something better than this. I don't like the UFC, but the UFC usually will at least put contenders against each other in the undercard, and I don't understand why boxing continues to do this. They've done it since Don King basically got out of the business of pay-per-view boxing in the mid to late 90s. Jeremiah?
No, I agree. I mean, it's been a consistent theme in boxing. I mean, especially, you got a bunch of Bob Arum cards and a lot of, what you'll see with the fight coming up that we're talking about. I mean, it's Lomachenko and Walters, and then on the undercard, it's a lot of top-ranked prospects, and they're against overmatched opponents. I mean, we see this time and time again. And like you said, the UFC does it right. Regardless of how we feel about them, I personally don't mind the UFC. I'm not a big mixed martial arts fan, whatever, but their marketing strategy is much better. They understand that to sell a fight, to get people amped about a card, you got to put consistent top-level guys against one another, and we're not seeing that. And part of that's the fragmentation of the sport, some of the promoters not dealing with one another, whatever, what have you. The sport needs to do a better job, and if they don't, we're just the sport's just going to remain on the fringe.
Yeah. Any opinion, John?
Well, I tell you, in times like this, it makes you realize how great of a promoter Don King really was. I mean, a lot of people didn't like Don personality-wise and his history, and what he did with Ali and things like that. But when you think back to that show, I believe it was in 1994, when he had Jesse James Leija and Azuma Nelson, he had Julian Jackson and Gerald McClellan. He had Terry Norris and I believe Luis Santana, and he had one other fight. Four fights that were all monster fights. Like any one of them could have been the main event, and he had basically 4 main event fights on the same show, and all his pay-per-views were good. Now, like you say, it's funny, but I find myself not even generally watching the undercard fights because I know it's either people that I never heard of or guys that I know are going to be highly favored to win. They're going to be matched very properly. And there's nothing wrong with that. But, I mean, for a pay-per-view fight, you're expecting, I expect, 4 fights, like Don King style, 4 really good fights.
Give us at least one competitive match.
Right, but, pay-per-view is like the Super Bowl. several times a year. Pay-per-view is the one where you should know, like, okay, on pay-per-view night we're going to see 4 really tough fights, 4 guys against 4 really tough guys. And when they don't do that, when they give a guy too much of an edge, that it feels like ESPN. It's almost like they put an ESPN card on and then they put a super main event on top of it, and that's not right. That's not right at all. Like, pay-per-view is supposed to be the Stanley Cup, the Super Bowl, the World Series of boxing, and I think they think people aren't gonna stop buying, and I guess they're right. I mean, people are still buying it, but boxing fans maybe need to start to shift, start to do a boycott or something. Because
I don't think there's been a boxing that did a great pay-per-view since Mayweather and Pacquiao, though, John.
Yeah, but and like the thing is, people want the bang for their buck, I guess you could say. They want to see really good fights, and me personally, like, I hate the fact that sometimes I watch these pay-per-view fights and there's a guy on there and I've never heard of them before, and I'm in boxing. I watch boxing, and these are guys I never heard of, and I'm like, how is this guy on pay-per-view? And the pay-per-view is supposed to be saved for the best guys, and there's plenty of guys in boxing today that could be on that show, but they're trying to save money, whatever they're trying to do, but that is not the place to give your prospects exposure. That's the place for elite fights, top of the line fights. And I'm not really a fan of this strategy that they're using.
Yeah, I mean, there's fights like the Liam Smith and Canelo Alvarez. There's no way I'm paying for that. But if you put 2 or 3 really good fights under it, I might.
Right. It's almost like, it seems to me like they just put the good main event, and then they just throw whoever they want on the undercard, thinking people aren't going to mind.
Yeah, no, like you said, it's ESPN Friday Night Fights +1,
Yeah.
Right.
And hell, you talk about Don King. I remember going to watch closed circuit Tyson and Reddick, and the fight that was on the undercard of Tyson and Reddick 2 was Jeff Fennick and Azuma Nelson.
Right, exactly. No,
that ended up being better than the main event.
Right, and it's but even if it wasn't a better fight, like these are major guys. Like nowadays, I see these guys on the show, the semifinal, and I'm like, how is it that I've never even heard of this guy before? It just doesn't make sense to me at all.
Yeah, and the problem is, the more they do that, the more people are going to not watch the smaller fights, and the more times you're going to get guys you've never heard of.
Right.
I mean, because I watch boxing all the time, and I mean, I've heard of Perez and Hooker, but I've never really seen them fight, and I really didn't want to see them fight that night. I would rather, if I'm going to pay $55, I'd rather just pay $55. They show me that fight. They come on the air at 9 o'clock. They fight at 10 o'clock, and I'm done with it.
Right. That to me, those fights should be main events on ESPN.
Yeah.
It's that level. Like save the pay-per-view for the pay-per-view. Like fights that you would want to pay to view, and those are fights that should be. No offense to those guys at all. It's not their fault. They take the opportunity as it comes, and more power to them. But talking about the promoters, you want to see, like I say, Don King. People can say what they want about the guy, but he did it right. He did it. He's maybe the greatest promoter in history, if you really look back at how he orchestrated the fights and how he arranged them.
Yeah, he looked out for the fans at least. Whether he looked out for the fighters or not's another argument. But I mean, he looked out for the fans. You usually got your money's worth.
Yes.
Well, yeah. Well, and let me just add real quickly. It's hard to pay for a pay-per-view when Al Heyman has given me Thurman Porter for free.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, really, this year, hell, it used to be, John, I'd buy every pay-per-view boxing event. I bought one this year.
Right.
And really, I had a hard time talking myself in and out when even though it was a fight I wanted to see. But speaking of fights I want to see, we'll go ahead and we'll preview what I think is going to be a great fight, Vasyl Lomachenko against Nicholas Walters. Jeremiah, first opinion?
First opinion, well, I've had the luxury of seeing Lomachenko twice in person. I knew he was going to be something special, coming out of the amateurs. I mean, his his amateur career, I wouldn't say he's the greatest amateur ever. That'd probably go to, one of the Cubans, maybe Laszlo Papp. But Lomachenko, he's just been ambitious from the get-go. I mean, I saw his first fight against Ramirez, and I wasn't too impressed with it, mind you, but, everything I've seen from this kid, for me, he just looks like an all-time great. In fact, if he doesn't retire as an all-time great, I'd be quite surprised. I mean, the rate at which he's moved already, the fighters that he's already beaten, he's just highly impressive. I mean, there isn't much that he can't do. He's highly cerebral. He's quick. He's intuitive. He's one of the few fighters I've seen who can move a lot but also punch a lot. I mean, like against Gary Russell Jr., I think he moved a ton, but he ended up throwing a bunch of punches. I mean, he's really a superstar in the making, in my opinion. He's just something special. And as much as I like Walters, I mean, he's got good size. He's got good power. He's got a couple of good wins under his belt, like the Darchinian fight, the Donaire fight. He struggled a bit with Sosa, though I thought he won it clearly. I think this may be a moment. This may be a Mayweather-Corrales moment where, we view it as an even match going in, and Lomachenko just touches him up and wins a clear, easy decision. Walters looks like a tough guy to me, but in terms of boxing, I don't see what he has to offer for Lomachenko. Again, I just think Lomachenko is something special, and I think he wins this fight clearly.
All right, John, agree or disagree?
Largely agree. I think Lomachenko, we were in Las Vegas, and I was talking about it Saturday night, and I was saying it's kind of crazy, but, I mean, you could make a case, even though he has the amount of fights that generally, 6-round fighters still have, and you could make a case that he's pound for pound the best, certainly the best skilled fighter in the world. He's really amazing. Like you watch some of his fights, and the moves he makes, and the movements, and the punching off of it, and it's something you just don't see. You're just not seeing. I like Walters a lot, but Lomachenko, with his movement and his ability to punch off of his movement and his power that goes with it, I don't see him losing anytime soon. And I wish he would get a rematch with Salido, because I think he would. The difference in the results would be like shocking in some ways.
Yeah, and you bring up Salido, who he lost to. I mean, do you think, Jeremiah, this is Lomachenko's toughest test to date, though, with Walters?
I do. Relatively speaking, maybe no. I mean, throwing a guy like Lomachenko in his second fight against a guy like Salido, who's a wily veteran, came in overweight, and that's a tough task, no doubt about it. I mean, I don't know how many guys have stepped up that quickly. I mean, maybe against was the guy who fought Floyd Patterson in his first fight, Rademacher.
Yeah, Pete Rademacher.
Yeah, I mean, so that's obviously a tough test. But Walters, in my opinion, is the best guy that Lomachenko has faced to date. But the problem is, I'm not totally convinced that Walters is an elite fighter. I mean, I think he's very good, but his best wins have come against older, smaller fighters. I mean, when he knocked out Vic Darchinian, Darchinian's been past his best for years. I mean, we're talking about a guy who started at, 112, and, he got knocked out by Walters at 126. Donaire is kind of the same story. I mean, we've seen that Donaire's kind of been on the decline, and I think Regan now clearly exposed that. But Walters, he's a good fighter. I'm just not quite convinced that he's an elite fighter. I mean, he's looked good against good fighters, but he really hasn't taken on a top guy. And I don't see the only problem I see here is whether or not Lomachenko can hurt Walters or not. Because Walters, again, he looks like a tough guy. He took some of Donaire's punches. He was wobbled by a Donaire left hook, mind you. But Walters seems like a tough guy. Lomachenko showed that he has a bit more power than we all expected by knocking out Roman Martinez cleanly. But the struggle, if there is one, I think, is Lomachenko getting Walters' respect. If he can't, he's going to have to move a lot more. But if he can, I think it's going to be much easier on him.
Well, I think Walters is more skilled than you give him credit for. I mean, the Donaire fight, late 2014, I think he's proved that he could box effectively because he set up his power shots. He didn't just land one big shot.
No, and I agree that he's a skilled guy, but when you look at him in terms of a comparison to Lomachenko, he's a bit raw. And also when you watch that fight, Donaire was actually in it for the first, 3-4 rounds. And again, he hurt Walters with one of the shots, but you're right, Walters did counterpunch effectively. But I attribute that more to Donaire's undoing than anything else. And, you know, Donaire, he's been fading for a little while, and he's become real left hook happy, right? When you're giving a guy one avenue to look down, it becomes a bit easier. You know, it becomes predictable. With Lomachenko, he's so multifaceted. He's so his skills are just so well-rounded that I don't think Walters can pick up those little nuances with Lomachenko. You know, may he be competitive? Sure, but I just don't think that Lomachenko loses many rounds here.
And John, to me, the key to this fight is space, basically. I think that Lomachenko is very good with space, and I think Walters will need to find a way to keep the space of the fight where he needs it to make his power decisive. And I think he's going to have a hard time doing that with Lomachenko.
Oh, for sure. This kid's going to be on his game. He's going to be nimble. He's going to be all over the place. You know, it's going to be like trying to stop a pinball. You know what I mean? And this guy is going to be really on his game. Really, you know, I wouldn't be surprised, and I guess it's a mark of a great fighter, if this is the best that Lomachenko's ever looked. I think he'll be mentally and physically prepared, and I think he's going to execute the game plan and fight the right style. And you know, and in some ways, you know, and Walters is a very good fighter, but in some ways, I think they picked him specifically because they feel like he's a good name who's going to make Lomachenko look good. I think he's going to bring the fight to Lomachenko, and he's going to and he's going to make him look good. He's going to make him use all his skills, and they're going to test him, and I think he's going to pass in a big way.
Yeah, and I think what you just said goes back to what Jeremiah is saying about this being like Mayweather against Corrales.
Right. Very similar. You know, you're going in with a guy who is highly respected and everything, but the timing of it and the styles and the skills versus the skills, you know, the way they match up with each other. You know, the guy could be great against other people, but against this particular guy, it's like kryptonite. And, you know, so I think that's the case here.
So I assume you're both picking Lomachenko by decision or knockout, John?
I go with a decision. I think he'll be a little bit careful, maybe not want to commit 100% because, you know, he knows he's in with a dangerous guy. You know, because it's not going to be Walters laying down by any stretch of the imagination. I think he's going to be in it to win it, you know, right to the end. So I think all things considered, I'll go with an unanimous decision.
All right, Jeremiah.
No, I agree. I think that's a safe pick. I mean, I was saying that for me, it's whether or not Lomachenko can earn Walters' respect, and Walters seems like he has a pretty good chin. Again, he took, some clean Donaire left hooks. So for me, I think if I had to pick between one of the two, whether or not he gets his respect or whether he doesn't, either way, I think Lomachenko boxes a bit safer in this fight, and I think he earns a clear decision.
All right, Jeremiah, you got anything before we wrap this up?
Well, I don't have much, but I would like to, just wish Edward Guchnich, I believe is his name. I wish him a speedy recovery. He was the guy who fought George Groves over the weekend, and Groves gave him a nice little pasting. After the fight, he was hospitalized, and he's undergoing some surgery. So I just wish him well, and again, speedy recovery.
All right, John?
Well, I'd like to second that. I hate to hear that news. In Las Vegas on Saturday, I actually did my my fifth. I don't know if you ever heard about it, but I do these amateur boxing reunions where I get together different people from the amateur days, and we just have a reunion, and everybody's invited. I've done them in New York City. I've done them in Las Vegas. I've done them in Foxwoods and Mohegan Sun, and this was my fifth one, and had a nice turnout. I had Roy Jones and Kelsey Banks there, who actually I didn't even realize this until Roy told me. They because when they saw each other, they were very excited, and I have pictures of it where they're hugging, and they have not seen each other since the 1988 Olympics. believe it or not. They never crossed paths since. So they saw each other for the first time at my reunion on Saturday. And, we had Skipper Kelp there. We had Alex Ramos there, who actually ran into Tony TNT Tucker, former heavyweight champion. And turns out they were on amateur teams together. And Alex was just totally excited. So besides the fight, I had my reunion in Las Vegas, and it was definitely a success. So I plan on doing more of those over the next couple of years. And so I was just very excited about it because of the turnout and the guys that I got to come. Paul Gonzalez, 1984 Olympic champion, he was there as well. So it was kind of a special day for me besides the fight.
All right. And, John, thanks for coming on the show again tonight.
I appreciate you guys having me. Call me anytime.
Man, if you want, every week you can come talk boxing with us if you want.
Oh, yeah. Maybe. I got my daughter. I got some stuff going on. But, when you call me, if you need a spot, let me know. And give me enough advance notice, and I'll be a regular customer.
All right. Thanks a lot, John.
All right, guys. Be good.
Yep,
right,
you too.
You. Yes, sir.
All right, guys. That was John the Iceman Scully, former light heavyweight contender, lost to Michael Nunn. So I guess we're ready to wrap up another show, Jeremiah.
I guess so. I think another quality one.
Well, at least we had a fight that lived up to its billing this week, and I think we will next week too.
Well, I sure as hell hope so. I mean, boxing needs it. And, as weak as, October was, we need something. I mean...
Well, as weak as the whole year was, outside of Thurman and Porter and a couple other fights.
Right, yeah. No, you're definitely spot on with that. I mean...
Because I'm still waiting on Klitschko to fight Fury, and I don't think I'm ever going to see that again.
Yeah, I don't think...
Not that I wanted to see it, but we need it for closure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was just, it was for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. I mean, how many titles... have such a ring to it. I mean, it's the heavyweight championship of the world, but fuck it, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if Fury's retired, whatever. We'll get something going here, hopefully.
All right, and the boxing world lost former heavyweight contender Alex the Destroyer Stewart this last week, I think it was. I know he passed away. Wasn't very old. I think he was only in his 50s. Started off his career 24-0 with 24 knockouts. Went to war with Evander Holyfield a couple times. The first fight was a great fight. He got knocked out in. I know he was in the 84 Olympics on the Jamaican boxing team. And he gave George Foreman all kind of hell in their fight towards the end of his career.
Yes, he did. Yeah, I mean, Alex Stewart was a solid fighter, but, it's just unfortunate to see guys like that pass away. And to be honest with you, I'm not even sure what he passed away from.
No, I just saw that he passed away because I know... Peter McNeely got a hold of him and said, Alex Stewart died. Is that true? And I did a little search, and he did. So I don't know what it was. I just know he was way too young when he passed away, and he was a damn good fighter.
Yes, sir.
And the unfortunate thing about him is people tend to just remember his one-round knockout with Mike Tyson. And he was a better fighter than that.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, that seems to be the case with a lot of, lower-level fights. I mean, typically people just focus on the big names. So, I mean, unfortunately, I'm not surprised.
Well, hell, anymore, most people just focus when they hear Michael Spinks. They think he got knocked out in the first round by Mike Tyson, and that's all he did.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, completely ignoring the great work that he did at 175. Unfortunately, too many fighters have that sort of label. I mean, they only seem to remember the negative aspects of their career. But
yeah, you get blasted in one big fight, but... Yeah, I'll tell you, we didn't bring this up before, but did Kovalev look a little more nervous than he normally is coming into the ring before the fight, do you?
Yeah, no, he did. I agree. He certainly did, but I think once the bell started ringing, and I think when he saw that he could hurt Ward, because I thought he shook Ward up with a couple of jabs. I think
it's kind of similar. You ever watch a football game, and the team will come out and drive down and score real easy right away, and then they don't score again?
Yeah.
Where it's like it's so damn easy that they think, this is over, and then they never can get back to that level.
Yep. Well, I mean, you're always going to have a tough time beating somebody like Ward playing prevent defense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Ward's a hell of a fighter, and he completely proved anything there. Because even the Super 6, I don't remember too many guys hitting him clean.
No, hardly anybody hit him clean.
And I think Kovalev proved how good he was too.
I think so too. I mean, if you were to ask me what I think, whether the fight could be different, I think it could be. I mean, if Kovalev could cut the ring off more, if he could mix up more, because really he was all he did was throw jabs and straight right hands. I mean, if he mixed in some left hooks, goes to the body more, might be an interesting fight. I mean, but the great thing is, it was a really good fight. We haven't had very many fights of that stature at 175 for a long time, and a rematch will be built bigger. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, and hopefully it will be built bigger. Hopefully it'll give us a better undercard on the fight.
Oh, please.
I'm waiting for Bob Arum to give us a call, see if we want to fight on the undercard.
Yeah, I mean, these promoters don't get it either. I mean, they're too concerned with lining their pockets. But I've seen a lot of
Jeremiah, but for $100,000, I'll fight you.
Okay, let's do it.
It'd be more entertaining.
Yeah.
It would have to be.
Yeah,
of course, one of us gets screwed in a decision, but.
Well, I mean, it all depends on where it takes place. You want to come to Mile High City, or am I coming to Indiana?
I don't know. Either way, I mean, I might have a better chance where people don't know me, Jeremiah, to tell you the truth.
Well, we'll do it somewhere neutral, like Lincoln, Nebraska, or Omaha.
All right, Omaha, Nebraska. Okay, who was the heavyweight that contended for the titles that lived in, or was from Nebraska?
Oh, it was the guy who. Oh fuck! I think he got stopped by Frazier, and he actually stopped Ernie Shavers. What the fuck was his name? Damn it! I can't think of it right now.
Come on, he was a white heavyweight.
Yes, that's certainly true. And I remember he was ringside. He was ringside for one of Terrence Crawford's fights. So I know he's still around and kicking. His name was. Yeah, I'm gonna get it. I'm thinking here. Ron Stander.
Well, that would be correct, but he wasn't from Nebraska. He was from Iowa. Actually, he was born in Columbia, South Carolina.
Yeah.
And then his adopted hometown was Council Bluffs, Iowa. But he did knock out Ernie Shavers, I think, in 1970. And he also had a points win, I'm not sure, but I think he beat Thad Spencer in, 1971. So there's two guys that actually
won. No, that's true. He did.
And then I know he lost, I think, by a fifth-round TKO. Bled all over Joe Frazier, if I remember right. My problem is I always get him and Terry Daniels mixed up.
Yeah, no, it was. You're close. It's a fourth-round TKO, but hard scrapper, guy who hit hard, and for all of his losses, I think he had 21 losses. I mean, he was only stopped 9 times, but he had something like 29 knockouts in 38 fights. I mean, he was kind of a tough journeyman, but he could punch as well.
All right, guys, and remember this: there's no other boxing show you will probably find where we will talk about Ron Stander. And I believe Stander also, because I think I've got this fight on DVD, but I think in 75 or 76, didn't he get knocked out by Kenny Norton?
Yes, I believe he did.
I know you're looking at the boxing rec. That was the 5th or 6th round?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just don't remember anything that happened since 1990, but everything before 1990 I'm pretty good on. But, guys, make sure you check out The Grueling Truth at gruelingtruth.net. Also follow us on Twitter at Grueling Truth. Make sure you listen to all of our other shows. We got an NFL Pick'em show, CFL Pick'em show. We got team shows for hopefully your favorite team, which we get shows for the Steelers, Bengals, Niners. All have former NFL players on it. We have the NFL Legends show, which we've had guys like Jerry Kramer, Lem Barney, Kenny Anderson. So just about anything you can want sports-wise, go check out thegruelingtruth.net. So for John the Iceman Scully, Jeremiah Preisser, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.